My 13,000 mile Chevy Corvette Grand Sport is kind of missing the engine, but that's okay because the machine shop just called and the engine block is finally done. Now, normally you wouldn't need to send your Corvette LS3 engine to a machine shop at 13,000 miles, but after winning my C6 sight unseen from the auction, I quickly learned that what happened to this engine was anything but normal. The intake manifold and heads were being held on with just a few bolts, and all I needed was a suction cup to pull out the piston. The rod was shattered to pieces, and it's my theory that this was hydro-locked with oil. The Corvette was traded into Carvana as a mint condition running and driving car, and it had brand new oil in places it should never reach, like the intake manifold. I was hoping I could just replace the rod and piston, so I bought all the new parts from GM and then found not one but two holes in the block. That ended up being no problem for my friend Blaine, as he welded them right up, and I felt it was best to send it to the machine shop afterwards for inspection. I'm so glad I did, because the machine shop found an out-of-round sleeve on the same cylinder with the broken rod, which confirmed my suspicion of a hydro lock. The force had nowhere to go but out, so it deformed the sleeve before breaking the rod. They replaced the sleeve, honed each cylinder, decked the block, and installed new cam bearings, and I had the crank and cam polished and loaded everything up in my truck. Now, something crazy I learned is how far off GM tolerances are in the LS3 engine. Look at the factory sleeves on any LS3 and you'll see what's called core shift. This is when the walls of the sleeve are uneven and thicker or thinner on opposite sides of the wall. Now, if you're building your LS engine for over 1,000 horsepower, you may consider getting it re-sleeved, but for most all builds, and especially for a stock one, this is okay, but still very interesting to see what GM deems as okay. The plan for my LS3, which is sitting over there on the engine stand, is a better than factory stock build. So a factory freak engine is just one that's built with better tolerances, so we're going to meticulously build my LS3 for just that. Imagine an engine that's built on a Monday versus one on a Friday when everyone just wants to go home for the weekend, so they're rushing through things. And of course, GM's spec for this is insane. 1/4 inch, just throw a 1/4 inch on there. Whatever you get is fine with us. So this is the time you should probably go grab yourself a cold pop or a water that is much more healthy for you, and enjoy the show, because we are about to perfect the almighty LS. All right, I'm thinking the first thing we should do for our Corvette engine is clean up the pistons that we're going to be reusing. So we are replacing 2 pistons, but these are just a little dirty, and I'm gonna show you guys the best way to clean them. But first we need to remove the piston rings. So this is our top compression ring, slides out like that. And then this is the second compression ring. So back up, there we go. Comes right out. And then on the bottom are the oil rings. So this is going to keep the oil out from the combustion chamber. We don't want that. And the oil rings come out the same way. You have to be more delicate if you were reusing these, but we're gonna be replacing the rings. So we'll slide that out the bottom. Then we have our spacer ring, this crazy looking one. Slides out like so. And then our last rail ring. Bam. She gone. Next, we're gonna separate the rod and the piston, and there's a little clip we need to pop out. Put another finger on top of it. It could pop out and hit you in the eye. There we go. This clip holds in the wrist pin. Then you can use any kind of cylinder or a socket, and a few little gentle taps, and you'll see the wrist pin will start to slide out. And now we can separate the rod, and we'll pull this wrist pin all the way out like that. And because this is only a 13,000 mile engine, you can see the bearing is in perfect condition, and this slides very nicely. Okay, that leaves us with our bare piston, no rings. And again, you can see how low of a mileage engine this is there's no wear in the side skirt coating. The best way to clean pistons and many other automotive parts is an ultrasonic cleaner. And we'll turn these both on. So this is going to heat up an engine degreaser. So this is some brand new fluid. I had this on earlier, so it's pretty much hot, but it's just like deep frying fries in a basket. And so we're gonna install our piston here. It's gonna plop on down, be careful, this fluid does get pretty hot. And so we'll come back in a little bit and pull it out of here and see how clean it is. We're gonna check on the pistons now. Actually move them to the front of the building in here because this thing is very loud and annoying, and I got a film out there. So here we go. Turn this guy off. Oh, yeah. All right, so this is very, very hot. Oh, look at that. but that is cool. These things are mint. Oh my gosh. Look at all the goo from the ultrasonic. Oh my gosh, this is so nice. Let's rinse these off. We're just gonna give these a quick little rinse and cool down mostly. Not too bad. Yeah, we'll clean these off a little bit. Oh man. Look at that. I mean, they're seriously, they're like new pistons now. That's beautiful. So we went from a piston that looked like this all the way to a piston that looks like this. Now, the top side isn't really the most important part of this cleaning. It looks shiny, but what we really want to get clean is where the rings sit. So the grooves in the side of the pistons. We don't want any carbon or any buildup in there at all. So our new rings will fit right at home and not have any issues. But overall, it is crazy to think that this is a used piston. It looks great. All the pistons are super clean, and I have labeled everything, including the block, because now we are going to start to match these rings to each specific cylinder, and we have to file them down as well. I like to stay super organized with anything engine related, so we're going to draw this out exactly the way it's going to go in. And up top, we'll have 4, 6, 8. So we'll lay out the rods and pistons right here. But right now, we're just gonna start with the rings. So I'm gonna start assigning rings. Now we're about to take our new rings and actually grind them down with this tool. And that's to get the ring gap. And I just wanna explain that really quick because it is very important. So this is one of our old pistons with the old rings on it. And this is the gap for the ring. So as you can imagine, with this installed in the engine, this ring gap gets pretty close. And let me do you one better and install one of our rings into a cylinder like so. Just slide it in. Now you can use an old piston or a tool like this, which is adjustable depending on what kind of engine you're using, but this just sets the depth of the piston because we're gonna measure this ring gap right now. And we want this to be even and installed about 1 inch into the cylinder. That's good. And now we're gonna use our feeler gauge to measure. We'll start at 15 thousandths. And you can see here how the gap has tightened up now that the ring is installed. And wow, our 15 thousandths won't even go in. That's very tight. So let's try 10 thousandths right now. Yeah, that's pretty much right at home, 10 thousandths gap. So that's a very tight gap, but brand new rings will come like this. They are supposed to be file fit rings, meaning that you can customize this gap however you want with the grinder tool. Now it's very important, whatever brand ring you buy, you follow their instructions because they're all gonna be a little bit different. But according to this company, we want 4 thousandths per 1 inch of bore, and that's the minimum. So the factory bore on an LS3 is 4.065, and this is a cylinder bore gauge, and I have it zeroed out right now. And all I'm doing is using the caliper as a base, so we'll see where we end up, about 20 thousandths. So that means from here to here, what's gonna contact the cylinder is 20 thousandths more than 0.065. All right, so stay with me, people. So right now, this is 0.085. We're gonna stick it in the bore gauge. We're gonna do a little math. I'll make it easy. So I'll put the bore gauge in like that. We'll bring it down a little bit. All right, so we're bouncing around a little bit. So the middle of where it starts going back and forth is what you're honing in on. No pun intended on the cylinder hone. I think we're gonna be right around there. So your dial bore gauge has to be set up larger than your cylinder. So we were at the 4.085 minus, we had 0.018, and we have 4.067. And that is perfect. So it looks like the machine shop took about 2 thousandths off. Could be a little bit less, it was fluctuating, but that is absolutely perfect. So now we know our bore size. We can multiply it by the recommendation for the ring gap and figure out our ring gap. So 4.067 times 0.004, we have 16 thousandths. That's the ring gap needed. And just to show you that if we use the factory bore, we're still gonna go with 16 thousandths. So a couple thousandths on the bore size doesn't change the ring gap size by much of anything. Now something that's pretty crazy, well maybe not that crazy after seeing what was going on with the tolerances on the cylinder liners, but GM spec for the rings ranges from 6 thousandths of an inch to like 17 thousandths of an inch. Anywhere in between there is fine with the GM, and I find the lower end of that to be way, way too tight. Because the reason you need ring gap is with heat, and especially with boost, the ring can actually butt up against itself. And when that happens inside of the bore, the ring has nowhere else to go but out, and then it gets stuck in the cylinder, and it'll increase wear, and in some cases break the piston ringland, just like this from my 2002 SVT Lightning. So this is the original piston out of the original engine. I bought it like this, but you can see here that they were most likely running too much timing, could have been too lean of an AFR, and the rings butt butted up and they lift off the piston. As you can see, that's the ring land there where the grooves are for the rings. So that's not good. And this is from my Turbo Trans Am. This is just a cool failure I wanted to show you. It has nothing to do with ring gap. This was just running too lean and it melted the piston. So when you're running too lean, especially with boost, it can basically turn into a blowtorch in there and it just melted the piston. So I just wanted to show you that because it's cool. So now we can get to filing our rings. So we had that 10 thousandths ring gap, which is no good. We need to open that up. And you'll notice that this has a dot on the top that always faces up, and the second ring has the same dot. Both cases they face up. But this is a very inexpensive ring filer. It does the job. People get crazy with setting up, drills and all sorts of weird stuff, but I think this works great. And we're only gonna file one side of the ring, the one that doesn't have the dot, because that side is actually cut from the factory. You can see this side is already cut versus this side that's not, so we're just gonna keep going on this. So with this tool, there's two little posts here, and that gives you a ledge to kind of push on the ring a little bit. So right now we just have this side contacting the wheel, and we're just going to turn this right now. And it goes pretty quick, so we want to just do a little bit and then remeasure. So that's good for now. And now we'll go ahead and put this ring back in cylinder 2. Push it down nice and even. All right, so already I can tell the feeler gauge we started off with is much looser. So now we're at 14 thousandths. That's fitting nicely. And we're not quite there. This is 16 and it won't go in. That's okay. We'll get our ring set up once again. And this time I'll just do 2 revolutions. There we go. Okay, let's go remeasure. After going back and forth 2 times, we have 16 thousandths, fitting very nice. But that is the minimum spec. I'm actually gonna do 18 thousandths, and if this was gonna be a boosted engine, I would go even more, maybe like 22, 24 thousandths. Some people make this gap much wider if they're going for like 1,000 horsepower or something crazy. But I'm gonna do 18 thousandths on the top ring and 20 thousandths on the bottom ring or the second ring. So you can tell there is a difference between the top, which is this one, and the bottom ring. This one is a little bit wider. Some factory engines are set up with this gap tighter than the top gap, and that's mostly for emissions reasons, so it's catching all the combustion in between those 2 rings and not letting any of it escape. But on some engines, especially performance engines, you want to go a little bit looser on the bottom ring or the second ring, because if you get these gases trapped in between the 2 rings on the piston, the gases in between can actually push up on this top ring, and you don't want that. You want all the forces to be going in one direction. I followed this a little bit more. We have our 18 thousandths, and she's fitting nice, perfectly snug. Yes. All right, so that top ring is done, 18 thousandths. So right now I have the second ring installed, and what I do just for consistency is I keep the gap at 12 o'clock. It's probably not a huge difference if you do that or not, but if you're going for precision, why not? It's one extra step that doesn't really take you any more time. But I wanted to point something out. Look at the gap. That is untouched. I have not filed that at all. 32 thousandths of an inch. Let's see. Does that fit? Oh my gosh. That is nuts, guys. Nuts. It's probably a little bit bigger, probably like 34. I bought all brand new rings of the same brand, a really good brand that everybody uses on engines, and that's at like 34 thousandths of an inch. So that is an unusable ring. So hopefully we don't find too many more of those. I'm gonna have to order a new one. That gap is way, way too big. You would get some blow by on that. Some guys would run that on super high horsepower race engines, but that's not what this is. So check all your rings, people. A couple hours later, and I've gapped all the other rings. I did find one more out of spec ring. It's another secondary ring that's measuring around the same as the other, like 34 thousandths, so that's bad. Get that out of here, just so I don't mix up good rings and old rings and bad rings. These are all the old ones, and these are the bad ones. Go away. Well, it seems that I'm allergic to cars that aren't broken, but luckily for my dog, Lucy, I got Better Wild. These little soft chews are easy for her to eat, and she loves them. Better Wild is the only allergy supplement with ancestral advantage wolf probiotics, which help balance their gut microbiome. And I didn't know this, but 90% of your dog's immune system is in their gut. So a weak gut makes them more vulnerable to allergies, and we don't want that. Now, my sister-in-law's dog, Ginger, has had it so rough with allergies. Oh, she's always itching spots like this, and they're spending hundreds of dollars a month on Ginger with harsh medications to try and fix it. There you go, Ginger. So now she is off of all of those meds and taking her Better Wild Chew, and this is much more affordable and clinically proven to reduce redness and itching in about 2 months. Ooh, she ate that quick. If you guys want to try out Better Wild for your dog, click on my link down below, scan the QR code, or go to betterwild.com/carsJAN for their exclusive offer, and you can even stack this on top of other discounts if you subscribe. So this is a very limited time deal and their best one yet, and your dogs are absolutely gonna love this. So with every ring gapped and marked for its specific cylinder, our last stage is a little bit of cleanup. So we're using a soft file, and it's hard to see, but because we were grinding, there's a tiny little edge, and we just wanna file that down. Definitely do this by hand. Take your time. It doesn't take much, honestly. That's almost gone as it is. So you just want every side of this to be perfectly smooth, that's all. I'm done filing down cylinder 1 rings, so these are silky smooth, nothing's going to catch. After that's filed down, I just like to go around and just triple check, though this is 18 thousandths. Yep, perfect. Now you can never be too clean with engine parts, so even though we ultrasonic this before the rings go on, I'm just gonna shoot it with some air. Right. With number 1 piston cleaned up, we have to follow a certain orientation for the ring gaps. You don't want these to line up. So we're gonna start off with the oil expander. That is this funky looking ring, kind of hard to miss, and it doesn't matter which way this goes, top or bottom. And we can see oil expander gap range, so we'll put that to the right. This dot indicates the front of the engine, so this is right, this is left. So this is going in the bottom groove, and this is pretty easy one to install. It's very flexible. And we'll bring it on down. There we go. Now when this is all together, it's kind of hard to see where that gap is. So if you just kind of push up on one side, you can see it's right here, and it's gonna be right in the middle of the side of the piston. It's a nice looking piston right there. All right, so that's perfect. These are the 2 oil rings, and it doesn't matter which one goes where, top or bottom side, doesn't matter. But the gap for the bottom ring is gonna be the left top of the piston, so about right there. And so we can fit that in right where we want it, like that. And then you just gently rotate the ring around. You can kind of spiral it down there and make sure it fits in the groove nicely, like that. Cool. All right, bottom oil ring in, and then the top oil ring gap is gonna face down to the left. All right, so I fit that in. Perfect. All right, so here are the oil control rings. You wanna kind of move them back, make sure nothing is binded, and we're good there. Let's move on to compression. Both compression rings are gonna have the dot facing up, and they give you some pictures of what some different style rings will look like. But also if you wanna tell the top from the bottom, you'll see the top ring is shiny and the bottom ring or the second ring is not. So this one's going on top. So we'll do the second ring first. You can see the dot right there. And these are easy. We're gonna do the second compression gap to the left and the top to the right. They do sell a tool to install your rings, but you can do this by hand as well. So we're gonna do is guide in our second ring right into its gap. And then I like to hold it there with my finger. We expand this other end down. Make sure your finger's protecting it. You don't wanna scrape this down the side of the piston and scratch it, and it'll line right up like that. Cool, that guy is in. You can easily adjust the gap on these as well if you don't have it just perfect. But we want this gap to the left, that is to the left. Top compression ring, dot up, and this is going to the right, so completely 180 degrees opposite. Get that one started. Hold this guy, and then we'll hold the other end with our finger, nice and gentle. Get it in the groove, bam. All right, perfect. These rings are gapped, properly spaced out, and installed on our piston. We got 7 more to do. With our piston ready to go, we can install it on the rod. So here is our rod. Here is our wrist pin. We're gonna be using a lot of engine assembly lube, so I'll go ahead and lube up the bearing. So when this thing starts up for the first time, it'll be properly lubricated. So there is that. Now we can install the rod into the piston like so. We'll kind of hold it and slide in our wrist pin like that, and then it'll slide all the way through the rod like so. So this is now 1. Now you need an end stop for these wrist pins, so you have a little clip that'll go on each side of the piston so this thing doesn't move out. And so we're just gonna take this clip and slide it into its groove. Push it in there. And once you get in the groove, you can use a little screwdriver. Clip it right in. I've done that to both sides, so that is complete. Your rod should glide smoothly on the wrist pin at this point, and we can go ahead and consider this one done for now. So piston and rod number 1 is gonna hang out here until I do all the other ones. All the pistons and rods are complete. So now we are turning this guy around. It is crankshaft time. And here she is, our beautiful, balanced, and polished crankshaft with a new reluctor, because this took just a little bit of damage, you know, from that stuff. And here are all of the new bearings as well. Now the machine shop did line hone the mains, which means they torque the caps in and they make sure this is all straight and it gets honed out all the way through. So now we can remove all of the caps so we can get our bearings in. Slide these guys out and we can start popping our main caps off. As you can see, these are numbered, so that is 5 all the way to 1 right here. All right. A little zip zam zoo for you. Good way to start your day with a little zipping and zamming, or whatever time you're watching this video. What time is it? Where you're at, and where are you at? Sometimes these need a little bit of a love tap. Come on, love tap. There we go. I'm on this side of the engine so you guys can see, so I'm using my left hand when I'm a righty. It's so weird using your left if you're a righty. Like not weird if you're a lefty. There we go. So this is about the best view we can get of the repair job. Looking pretty good still, I hope. And these are the new sleeves. We have 2 of them. More repair, and we also have all of our new cam bearings as well. Gosh, I'm so excited to get this back. It's gonna be better than new. Before we get our bearings in, I'm just going around and clean out these holes for the bolts. A little brake clean in there. That sounds pretty cool. Just go around, and we're gonna blow all these out. And when we get our main bolts back in, the torque is just perfect. You need clean threads for that. All right, now I'm just blowing out everything. Oil passages as well. This engine's been cleaned, but you can never be too clean. With the block all cleaned up, it is time for our bearings. We're gonna start with the thrust bearing, and something I discovered was that on the dry sump LS3, you're gonna have 3 grooves on both sides of the bearing. This is the bearing set I originally had bought, which I'm not gonna use because it's for the wet sump, and you can see it only has 2 grooves, and then the other side has 3. So a small difference, but a very important difference. So we want this surface to be completely dry, and you'll see a little tang there that's gonna slide in right into the block like this. And then you just push down and make sure these are even. That bearing is installed. And then of course we're gonna be using engine assembly lube on all of these bearings for that first startup. You can use engine oil as well, but this, as you can see, is very sticky, and we'll get some on the thrust side as well. Let's coat that really nice. Okay. The rest of the main bearings are gonna be the same outside of the fact that there is a top and bottom on all of the bearings. So the bottom has the hole like this, and you can see we're using the factory GM bearings standard. These are not oversized or undersized because this is a factory rebuild. So same deal, you're gonna line up this little groove on the bearing and then simply slide it in like that. Make sure that it's true on both sides, and then copious amounts of engine assembly lubrication like that. All right, it's crank time, people. Giving it one last little spray, and we'll blow it out. It's ready. This thing is so heavy. These forged cranks are insane. Now, once we install the crankshaft, we're not gonna have the best view of the cam bearings, and I wanna make sure they are properly lubricated upon first start. So we're gonna use our big Q-tip and just go around our cam bearings and lubricate them. All right, perfect. You don't need a ton of this stuff. It's very, very thick. That's a good coating right there. Camshaft bearings are coated. We have engine assembly lube on the crank as well. Let's do this. Okay. Whew. All right, so this is a very delicate situation. Take your time here. Don't want to mess up your bearings. Perfect. All right, you want a good plop down like that. That's what I like to call it. Everything looking good. Bearings haven't moved. This is what you want right here. That is smooth as glass. All right. Our next step is to install the other side of the bearing. This is exactly the same way as what we just did on the block there. So line up the little groove, the tang, push it down, and you're good. You guys want to see something that's pretty disappointing? This is a brand new bearing. Brand new GM main bearing. Look at how bad that is. It is straight up gouged. This is another one. Same thing. It's got pitting and scratches. This is horrible. I just put this one in, and quite honestly, I'm not a fan of this one either. Look at all the pits. Luckily, I had a whole nother set of main bearings. This would be the one that has the thrust bearing with only 2 grooves. So these are wet sump bearings, but they're identical outside of the thrust bearing. And these look awesome. Look at that. This is what I would want to see. Now, these bearings look super nice. These GM ones do not. I mean, come on. Come on, people. What is going on here? You know what? I'm swapping them all, except for the thrust. I have to keep the thrust. Luckily, that looks perfect. So we're gonna go with GM thrust bearing in the middle, and we'll go with the Mal or Male, I don't know how you say that brand, but made in the USA bearings on the other ones. All right, so I just got done swapping those in. This side, they looked fine, but you always want your bearing halves to match. So we had to swap the rest of those out. So there we go. That looks much better. All right, here we go. Here we go. The main cap bearings are installed, and you know the drill. It's engine assembly lube time. Look at that. It's a heart for Valentine's Day. Look at that. I'm an artist. Before we get these caps on, I want to take a little measurement here. So this is called plasti gauge. It comes in a little sleeve like this with the measurements on it. So we're gonna put that in the width of the bearing and light assembly lube when you're taking your measurement. So since the crank was polished and line honed, these measurements should be spot on. We're just double checking them. And what I'm gonna do is install the center main cap. This is the thrust. You can see the thrust bearing installed. So every engine will have that. It's to control the lateral play. You don't want the crank walking back and forth. And it doesn't matter exactly where this is. I mean, it matters, but I'm saying every engine could have it in a different spot. A lot of them are actually in the rear, but on the LS, it's in the middle. But basically, as long as it's somewhere, that's where it needs to go back. So right now I'm installing the old main bolts, and we're gonna torque these down. Because we're just checking for measurements right now, we don't wanna use our new main bolts because they are all torqued to yield, so we only get one shot at those. All right, so we're gonna zip in our inners and the outers. All right, so we're gonna do 15 pounds first pass. All right, outside of 15 as well. Now inside is gonna be 80 degrees, and our digital torque wrench will do degrees as well, so that's kind of cool. There's that, perfect. And then outside is 53 degrees. Okay, so that is torqued for now. This is just a test measurement. We're not even doing the middle one. We're gonna actually test the next one, but I just wanna make sure it's even. Actually, what we'll do here is move our plasti gauge to the crank. You can put it on here too. It doesn't matter which end. Right there in the middle, perfect. And we will plot down number 2, and I'll torque this using the old bolts, just like we did here. So now this is fully torqued. Now we can literally just take it all apart. Take a look at the plasti gauge. Pop these guys out. Some love taps. There we go. All right, there is our plasti gauge. Look at that. All right, beautiful. And you can see it here on the bearing as well. So now we're gonna match up our chart. And of course, GM's spec for this is insane. It's less than 1/1000th of an inch all the way to 2.5 thousandths. It's like, GM's like, whatever you get is fine with us. But in doing research for LS bearing clearance from the factory, about 2/1000ths is what you want, and that is exactly what we have, maybe a little bit tighter. So the wider that this is, the tighter it is, because you can imagine it's squishing down more, which would be less tolerance, and then it widens out the plasti gauge. So yeah, we're perfect right here. You'll notice some of these main caps have 2 tangs, so just make sure that you go tang to tang. So you can see we have the tang on this side. That's gonna line up here. Now we can install this number 1 main cap. All right, so after I put one in, I just like to spin it around, make sure everything's looking good. And now we have number 2 going down. Sometimes you get a little love tap, I can do that. And then just give it a spin. Any kind of issues spinning, stop, take it apart. Take a look. Might have a piece of debris in there, you don't know, but this feels great. We're using the factory main studs, so according to GM, you can use engine oil for this, but we're gonna use some fastener lube. It just stays on the threads better, so I've already coated that. And studs go on the outside, and bam. Okay, cool. With all the main studs installed, we can start a very specific torque sequence. So you have to follow this right here. So right now we're just gonna gently snug all of these up with the gun. No torque is gonna be applied. Here we go, people. This is the actual torquing of the engine. We are following the diagram. 3, 4, where's 5? 5's right here. So this is gonna be 1 full pass of 15, and then we'll do our angle. All right, fun stuff, people. Switch sockets, and we're going to the outside. So the first pass was all the inners, and now we'll keep going. All right, so basically it's just an inside out type of pattern here. Our next pass is gonna be 80 degrees. Bam. And that is gonna be on the inners first. We're following the exact same pattern. 80, God, I love these new digital torque wrenches. These are amazing. But even as recent as just a couple years ago, I was using an actual angle finder, tool for doing the torque, which works as well. You can get those for like 20 bucks. Add them onto your torque wrench, they're really nice. All right, just like you saw me doing the middle cap, I'm following the sequence right now, so I'm actually on the last part. So we're gonna be doing our 53-degree angle torque on the outside bolts. So first pass was 15 foot-pounds in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It's basically an inside-out pattern. Second pass was 80 degrees on the inner bolts, and now we're on the third. So we're going down to 53 degrees. Bam, and here we go. So we're starting off with 11, because the last inner bolt is number 10. So we have 12 here, and then 13, and then it's a circle of torque. 14, oh wait, that was 13. Kidding, 14. And don't get distracted while you're doing this and forget where you left off. All right, don't film and talk to the camera and ask people what they're working on in their garage right now at home, and what's their favorite food, and where are they from. Don't do that. Wait, what number am I on again? Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm locked in. 19 and 20. All right, so the main bolts, the big main bolts are torqued, but the LS is an amazing engine. It is a 6-bolt main, so we have more bolts on the side. Now, something I like to do just periodically every step of the way is just spin the crank, make sure it feels perfect. And before you even tighten all that stuff down, you just want to look at a few things like the reluctor wheel. Now, I did have this replaced, but once these main caps are in, you have a point of reference to make sure that it's not bent. So look at this and look at this and spin it. If it is bent, you got to take this all the way back out, bring it to the machine shop and have them do it again, because otherwise the car may not start if the crank sensor doesn't line up. Something else that's very important. If you get new sleeves installed, they need to be machined on the bottom side as well in order to clearance the counterweights on the crankshaft. If they aren't, you got to grind that down because the crankshaft will hit. So just double check things before you put everything back together. So this is what the side bolt looks like. You can see it has factory applied sealant. And we're just gonna thread these guys back in. And so that just goes right in the side. Now these have a specific order as well. So we left off on number 20 on the main bolts, the big ones. So that's 21. And then 22 is gonna be on the opposite side, and same kind of deal. I'm just gonna go around in a little bit of a pattern here. 23, Michael Jordan. This is probably the best side bolt ever. It's the GOAT of side bolts. Right here, 24. He's like a famous sports guy that's number 24, I don't know. All right, I'll keep going. It's time for our pistons and rods. Torque specs ready to go. Super clean engine, ready to go. And I like to lay down a little bit of assembly lube in here. And then we'll just kind of move it around with our hand and coat this cylinder. Just this one though, none of the other ones. Just kidding, we're gonna do them all. This is what it looks like after coating each cylinder. First step of installing the piston rod combination would be new bearings. So there's no top or bottom for these rod bearings. We just gotta line up the tang there, just like that. So we're working with cylinder number 1 right now, so that guy. And just make sure your dot is facing forward. And then I like to pull this up again and just double check that our rings didn't move around, because they can easily move around. So this is looking good. Next up, we're gonna use a piston ring compressor, because this won't fit in without compressing these rings in. So this is gonna slide over, and you just wanna cover up where the rings go, and then you can actually tighten this. So this is a universal tool. With this guy tightened up, she's ready to go in, except on your way down, you don't want this scratching the cylinder wall. So I like to cover it up with one of these guys. This is what you put at the bottom of your chair so it doesn't scratch your wood floor. It's perfect. So now we can go ahead, glide this guy in there like so. Get the skirt of the piston perfectly in the bore. Okay, push down, should be really easy to this point. With our rings compressed, we're just gonna give it some taps with our hammer, and it should pop right in. Almost. Sometimes this top ring will get hung up a little bit. So if it stops, don't keep beating it down. One of the rings, most likely the second or the top, got stuck. No big deal. Just take something made of plastic and go right to the ring gap. And that's it. So that piston is in there. We got a piston, yeah! All right, piston and rod number 2 going home. All right, slide it on down like so. Excellent. In, there we go, we're in. All right, cool, nice. I'm gonna push this rod and piston assembly all the way up to the crank like that. And I've removed our little rubber protector. So now we can guide this up as well. Nice and gentle, make sure you're not gonna nick the crank. You just want the bearing on there. Beautiful. One of the other reasons I use so much assembly lube on the cylinder walls is I like to see how clean they get just after installing the piston. So you can see here, we started off with that. Now we have this, there's no weird lines or anything. If you still saw any of the assembly lube on this side, that could indicate that a ring is crooked and didn't seat properly, but it literally just cleans it perfectly smooth because of how close the tolerance is. Now, just like the mains, we are gonna plastic gauge one of these, just double check that our tolerance is good. And these rod caps only go on one way because these are cracked rods. So you'll see here, this line will almost disappear. Look at that. Now, once we tighten, look at that. Bam, gone. So I just finished torquing these. Now we'll take them apart. And these are the old rod bolts that we're using. We're gonna be installing all new rod bolts. And here's our plastic gauge. I can already tell it's pretty good. So we're looking for about 2 thousandths, and that is looking good. I've reapplied engine assembly lube. These are brand new bolts. And now we can assemble for real. All right, and I like to get both caps on if they're right next to each other for the final torque. There you go, buddy. Back to your home, perfect. Hand built. There we go. I think Bruce Blumfield would be proud. Bruce, if you're watching, comment down below, say hi. So these rod bolts are 2 passes, so we're gonna do 15. I'll hit these up too. I like to put them in a position where you can just torque them both without even moving the engine. It's going 85 right now. Start at 0, so have a little bit of time, and that's it. All right, 85 degrees. Get into position here. Engine building picture position. If I was gonna be in like an engine textbook, I'd wanna be like this. Or would I look at the camera? No, you gotta concentrate. Concentrate on the engine. All right, here we go, 85. There's one. Okay, last one. Bam, all right. Zylinder 1 and 2, all done. All right, after each piston and rod assembly, I like to turn it over by hand. Just make sure everything feels good. Looks good. And I like to flip it around and watch that piston go up and down as well. Again, you're just making sure the rings are perfectly seated in and not scratching anything. That would be bad. Cylinder 1, how you looking? Pretty good. Ready to make some power? 433 stock horsepower, but now that this thing is legitimately like blueprinted and perfect, it should make more power. And it's kind of crazy, I haven't put together anything stock in like ever, possibly? I mean, at the dealer. I guess my dealer life at Mercedes-Benz, everything was pretty much stock that we worked on. But this is so weird to me that like I'm not getting ready for like a fuel system and tuning and a blower and all sorts of crazy stuff. But it's a 13,000 mile mint Grand Sport, and yeah, I just want to get it back to perfection. This is looking really good so far. I'm on 5 and 6 angle torque now. We're moving along. Perfect, all right. The tables are getting bare. Well, kind of, there's still a lot of stuff here. But we've changed this table up quite a bit to valve train and cylinder heads. Okay, this one should be down, yep. Rings are compressed. Couple more little love taps. We are in, perfect. All right, we're on to 8. Cylinder 8 is one of our new pistons going on in. Nice, nice. Give this guy a little tighten. Yeah, sometimes you can just push these down by hand. That's honestly ideal. It's just that last one again. Cool. Yeah, this thing just let loose on me in the last one. Honestly, get the ones that are cylinder specific for your engine. These universal ones are good in a pinch, but not the best. Look at this, the pin just came out. Luckily, it got us right to the promised land, so we're done. Cylinder 8. Our rotating assembly is complete. Here is the original camshaft, which I did have polished up at the machine shop and checked, and it is absolutely gorgeous, in perfect condition. And fun little fact, the dry sump LS3 engine has a 3-bolt cam gear, whereas the normal wet sump is just 1 bolt. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's what they did. Supposedly though, the cam profile is the same. Before this goes in, you know it's getting copious amounts of engine assembly lube. There we go, right down the middle. And we'll just work this in, doesn't need to be too thick. I like to thread in a couple of random bolts as kind of a cam handle. And now we're just gonna be very gentle. We have our new cam bearings. We don't wanna mess those up. Take your time and just give it really nice support the entire way through. You don't wanna knock a cam bearing out. All right, so far so good. Next one, looking good. I like to spin it each time. All right, this last one's a little difficult, but you can do it. That's in, and we'll slide it all the way through like that. Perfect. All right, cam's spinning away. It's feeling really good. Awesome. Next for our camshaft is the cam retaining plate. This is a new part. It does have a seal and you have to replace the whole plate. And we're gonna do a little bit of blue Loctite on these bolts. Are they all rolling to each other? I want to be with you too, guys. We're going in, we're going in. So this cam retaining plate is necessary to control the end play of the cam. So similar to the thrust bearing on the crankshaft, you don't want this moving back and forth. So we'll get these bolts started. I'll draw this in with the gun. I'm gonna get the baby torque wrench out for this. It's only 11 foot-pounds. And no particular order on the cam retaining plate. All right. Cam's in. Right now we're gonna set the timing. So we're gonna spin the crank and eventually we should see a dot on this gear right there. And it's gonna face at 12 o'clock right in between these bolt holes. That's perfect. We're gonna be putting a guide over here so it's gonna be kind of hard to see. So I'm just gonna white dot this thing for me. Our cam gear will only go on one way. And we're gonna take this, we're gonna spin it. See that guy right there? It's gotta spin, 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 spin right there and line up at the 6 o'clock position, so we know that's good. Now the almighty LS3 has a timing chain damper or guide, and this is an updated part, so the earlier LSs didn't have this. I actually added one of these to an older LS engine before. So if you guys were around for my Chevy Caprice series, you probably remember this guy, and 18 foot-pounds is what we need. Bam. So now we're gonna take our timing chain, slide it over the gear. Slide over the gear, Alex. There we go. All right. And you wanna put this on as an assembly. So we'll go underneath the crank like so, and line it up with the cam. Might be off a tooth. Let's move it over. And we'll roll that a tooth over and see. Oh, is that it? Yeah, look at that. We got dot to dot. All of these holes are gonna line up. So let's go ahead and get our bolts in. A little bit of Loctite. These are new cam bolts as well. Okay, now we have the 3/8 torque wrench in the mix. So 26 foot-pounds. Bam, that's done. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you time an LS engine. You get cylinder 1 up to top dead center, and then it's 6 o'clock on the cam gear and 12 o'clock on the crank gear, and you're done. Very, very easy to time. Just like, I don't know, like a 2010 Audi R8 with the V8 engine. That timing job looks almost exactly the same as this. I'm just kidding. All the German cars seem to be insanely complicated, but at least they make way more power. Oh wait, no. The 2010 Audi R8 makes 420 horse. This is 433, but at least they're really reliable. No, the LS3 is pretty much the most reliable. Maybe they get better fuel economy. No, you can get like mid 30s on the highway with one of these. Maybe they're just emissions friendly. That I don't know. They might be. Maybe they're more emissions friendly. That's the benefit. We're gonna move on to our lifters next. So these are the factory lifters, and we'll throw on a little engine assembly lube and on the bore as well. And then our lifters are going in, held by these trays. So nice. So we can do 4 at a time. Perfect. Now we have a little bolt that goes in here to hold the tray in, like that. This we probably don't need to torque, but we're gonna torque everything on this engine. There we go, 7.5 foot-pounds, very specific. You know, we gotta get the 100-year-old gas can in here, so I'm just squirting some oil in on these lifters, since it'll hold it. If these were new lifters, I would have soaked them in like a bucket of oil for like 2 or 3 days, but these have already been pumped up from the engine, so we're good. Lifters are all in. We're just giving it a spin now that we have this thing timed. And everything feels great. We're good to move on. Next, we're gonna be installing our engine oil pump. This is specific to the dry sump LS3, and I had taken this apart in the last video just to inspect everything, and it looks perfect. So I'll just get a little bit of oil in here. And oil pumps are always kind of cool to look at. It's like Tony Stark's heart, you know, like the energy heart thingy that he's got in Iron Man. It's pretty much what this is. Really. Now, before we put this front cover back on, we're gonna go ahead and install the oil pump, and it's gonna spline into the crank snout here. So we have to do a little bit of lining up. Oh, not too bad when you have the cover off too. It's kind of easier to do it. Just like that, perfect. Now we're gonna start these bolts in. You can see here that when you mount the pump, it could change the tolerance inside of the oil pump ever so slightly, which means a lot on something as precise as an oil pump. And so we're gonna center this oil pump using 2/1000ths of an inch shims. These are just right out of my feeler gauges. I have 3 sets, luckily. So kind of move that around until it fits in. And we're gonna get a 3rd one in there. Perfect. Okay. And then this is a 1.5 thousandths feeler gauge. So a piece of hair is like 2 or 3 thousandths. This is half of that. So we're gonna fit those in like that. And we'll slide another one in over here. This is so thin, it's tough to work with, but there we go. Iron Man heart. All right, so that is all centered now. With all of our feeler gauges in here, we can see it's perfectly tight and centered. So now we can tighten up these bolts. Go ahead and torque these down to 18 foot-pounds. A little crisscross pattern. Okay, that's done. Now we can pull these out. There we go. Get out of here. Don't forget any. They're so thin. Look at these guys. And we're gonna go ahead and spin this by hand now. And that's perfect. Oh yeah, that is absolutely perfect. And you guys can kind of see how an oil pump works while it's installed on an engine. Sweet. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the cover for the oil pump. Slide it on there. Cool, and we'll tighten these up too. This is only 9 foot-pounds. We'll go in a star pattern as well. And then we are done with the oil pump. I'm gonna install a brand new windage tray because our old windage tray has something bulging out of it. It looks like someone's stomach in like an Aliens movie, you know, after they got an alien baby inside of them and it wants to come out. That's basically what the windage tray looks like right here. Anywho, this one does not have an alien baby in it yet. Or ever. So here it is. And here are the nuts that hold this guy down. Tightening these guys up. Windage tray is done. We're getting ready for some cylinder heads, and I bought new dowels. So we're gonna go ahead and tap those in. A little mallet, never hurt anybody. There we go, that's perfect. 3 more to go. And here are our new multi-layer steel head gaskets. These things are amazing. You can run all the boost in the world with the head gaskets, at least that part would be good. But they have a front, we'll line that up, perfect. And gasket number 2, okay, that's done. Now we'll clean up the cylinder head and they're going on. With our rotating assembly complete, we can move on to the cylinder heads. So this engine was not overheated. I don't suspect any issue at all. This looks really nice. We just need to clean it. So this is aluminum. We're gonna be very gentle, low speed with the white pad. So they sell these in different colors. White is the softest. It's not gonna remove any material whatsoever. You don't even really need to put much force into this. So all we're doing here is removing the gasket material, and just like that, that is perfect. So I'll go around and we'll clean this entire mating surface, and then we're gonna check it with the straight edge. All right, both cylinder heads are cleaned, ready to go back on. Now, I don't suspect any issues with the flatness of this head because it wasn't overheated. I think that rod just snapped clean off and that was it. But this is a straight edge, and if your head is warped, you sometimes, if it's really bad, you can see a gap in here. I believe the GM spec is up to like 5 thousandths or something like that, so there could be a deviation. This is a 2 thousandths feeler gauge, and it is perfect. So this isn't going through at any point in the head, meaning it's perfectly smooth and perfectly flat, and we can go on this plane as well. And this is looking really, really, really good. GM spec is probably like 1/4 inch. Just throw a 1/4 inch on there, it'll be fine. All right, let's get this on there. It's so light. I love aluminum. Which side are we going here? Exhaust out this way, intake that way. This is so slippery. All right, we'll just be really careful to line up the dowels. So nice doing an engine on a stand like this. That's not lined up at all. There we go. Perfect. Let's get some head bolts. So even though this is a stock rebuild, I'm going back together with ARP head bolts because these were about the same cost of the factory GM bolts, and they are much stronger, so just a good quality bolt. And per the ARP instructions, we're doing a little bit of its lubricant underneath the washer here, so taper side up. And then the flat side is kind of like a little waffle cone shape. That's gonna go on the bottom like that, so that's gonna kind of bite into the head. But when you're torquing the bolt, you want that to glide smoothly on the washer, and then we lubed up the threads as well. That way we get the proper torque. So go back together with these and put them in by hand first. Just like the bottom end, we are gonna follow a specific torque sequence and torque value. But first we'll just snug them all in with the gun to save some time because I'm dying to drive that thing. It's so weird. I've had this car for a while now and I've never driven it. All right, let's see here. First pass, bolts 1 through 10, 25 foot-pounds. So we start that off in the middle. That's 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. There's so many, guys. We have to do 3 total passes on the big bolts and then 1 on the small bolts up top. So there's gonna be a lot of beeps, beeps. Lots of times. All right, I'll see you on the last stage. All right, I lied. I didn't record the final pass of these big bolts. I forgot, but they're at 80. Now we can do the top ones, which are tiny. 1 step, 25, starting right in the middle. 11, 12, 13, 14, and finally 15. All right. Cylinder head is done. Aluminum cylinder head number 2 going on. This engine is getting bigger. Bam. All right. Driver's side cylinder head is complete and torqued. Let's do some valve train stuff. We got rockers, we got push rods. We'll probably start with the push rods. That makes sense. We're gonna add a little bit of the assembly lube onto the push rods, and then we can slide the push rods right on through, just like that. Perfect. Next, we have our pedestal for the rocker arms. It's gonna go in first. That is not blood, that's engine assembly lube. I lubricated the valves too. Now, something else that's very important is that we use a little bit of thread sealant on the rocker arm bolts, even on stock heads, but especially with ported heads. Let me show you why. So if we put compressed air in here, listen. It's going in the intake. So this would leak air, so you have to seal it off. With our thread sealant on, we can go 1 by 1. Pay attention because some of these rockers are angled like this and some of them are straight like this. Can't really mess this up, it would never line up, but see this push rod and the top of the valve straight? This one does not line up perfectly, that's an angle. And draw this in with our gun. No torque at all yet. All right, with these snugged up, we'll just kind of straighten them out a little bit. With everything started, we can hit this with 22 foot-pounds of torque. And the beauty of the LS here is that we don't have to set lash, make any adjustments at all. We just 22 foot-pound it, and she's ready. She's ready to go. So very, very easy valve train overall, just like the Audi. All right, just spinning everything over because it'll be one of the last times we see anything moving around in here. So just making sure all the rockers look good. Everything's going up and down with the cam. I'm liking what I'm seeing here, people, except there's a piece of my human hair in here. Get rid of that. There we go. We have a long block. This is a long block, people. Like if you were gonna order a new engine for a car, this is what you'd get, and then you'd swap over all of your covers. So that's pretty cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a completed engine, and I'm feeling really good about this. Knock on plastic or fiberglass or whatever they make Corvettes out of. I think we're gonna be okay. I mean, this went so well. Oh, I get so nervous about new engine builds, but in the next episode, we're putting it inside of this little red Corvette, and we're gonna do the thing, actually it's a button, first year C6 with the push button, and we're gonna fire this thing up and run this engine and hopefully drive this car, and everything's gonna be okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this LS engine building video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, a blue thumbs up. Share the video with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel if for some insane reason you haven't already. It's a free little button, and that is the best way to support the channel. But most importantly, have a fantastic day, and I'll see each and every one of you in the next video. I just don't want to ruin my car. I'm getting old. And this is the gap. Well, maybe not that crazy after seeing the difference in the cylinder liner thick. And the ring will actually butt up against each other if there's not against, yeah. So with this guy zeroed out. So with this, so I'll put the bore gauge in. All right, and we're gonna have this bounce around a little bit. All right, so we're bouncing around. I think we're gonna be right around there. All right, so we're bouncing around a little bit. So our tool was at 4.085. So our tool was set up. So your tool has to be set up larger than the cylinder. So your dial bore gauge has to be set up. Oh, Lucy, no. Lucy, I'll give you some of this. I swear, just look over there. The rest of the main bearings are gonna be here, let me just show. There we go, nice and gentle. Make sure you're not gonna nick the crank. A few more love taps. The hammer keeps sticking on my mic magnet. Stop it, stop it. And you can see the little, and then the flat side is kind of, and then the flat side.